Hey everybody, welcome back to Creating Scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And we continue our airport build using the SDK menus. We are working on 5 Alpha 1, which is a small, tiny airport outside of Norwalk, Ohio. It's where I have been doing all of my guinea pig tests of models and stuff and lighting, things like that. But I'm actually creating the airport now for a free download on flightsim.to, and we are all using it for tutorial purposes. In my scenery projects, you got 5 Alpha 1, which is my guinea pig. And then we have been working on 5 Alpha 1 new is just the working folder. But if we go inside 5 Alpha 1 new, we have 5 Alpha 1 dash Norwalk, which is the actual project. Okay. So if we go into that folder, we have the typical setup. Okay, the initialize package and the metadata and the packages, those folders were created because we've done a build, and those get added automatically. The package sources and the package definitions are usually the only two that are there when you first create your project. Okay, but if we go into package sources, we have a scenery folder which gets automatically created when you create an airport with the SDK menu system, and then inside that is the actual project itself, airport 5 Alpha 1 dash Norwalk. And then inside that you have another scenery folder, and then inside that you have your objects XML, which has the same name as the airport. Okay, so if I right click this and open this up in Notepad++, these are all of the objects that we have been adding in previous videos. Okay, so we have inside of here, we have the airport itself with all the taxiways, and we also have the taxiway parking. All right, now I'm going to leave this and close Notepad++, and we're going to kind of come back to package sources. This video, we are going to add a couple new asset groups. We're going to add a material library, and we're going to add a model library. Okay, so we're going to add a material lib, and we are going to add a model lib, and we're going to use the sim to add those. Okay, we're in the sim. So we are going to go to File, and we're going to open our project. Last one I was doing was Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So we're going to go to 5 Alpha 1 Norwalk, and we're going to go into the project folder, and we're going to click the 5 Alpha 1 Norwalk XML and open that. And then when this comes up, we're going to maximize the airport, select the BGL, go to the inspector. If it's not open, just go to view and choose inspector, and we're going to load this into the sim. That part is pretty easy. All right, so we're going to zoom out, take a look, and I think I've already talked about this on another video, but if you noticed, I didn't add all of these other taxiways and parking spaces on video. Okay, I added a couple, and then I added all these off screen, so yeah, I didn't put you guys to sleep, which I probably do anyway. All right, so the next part of creating the airport, we have the taxiways, we have the parking, and now we're getting ready to do some groundwork, add some models and things like that, but we have to prepare the scenery for that. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a couple assets. Okay. We need to add, especially if you're going to use custom materials for aprons. Okay. You don't have to. You can use you can start adding aprons right now, but we're going to be adding aprons in the next video. This is just getting your project set up to do that. As it sits right now, you can easily come over to objects and change scenery to aprons, and you can start adding aprons using the default materials from the default material library. So if we come up here and we maximize the material editor, all right, we have user, and then we have access to any material library that is in the community folder or in the default sim. Okay, you have access to that right off the bat. So if you didn't want to make your own custom materials for the ground and stuff, you can go to work right now, okay, by adding those objects to your sim. Okay. However, we want to create our own model lib and our material library. All right. So objects is irrelevant at this point. So let's go to adding a material library. So what I'm going to do is I am going to click up here at our main project, and I'm going to open up the inspector. Down here at the bottom, you see the asset groups that we already have in our project, and right now it's only the scenery BGL. And if you hear me say bugle, I mean a BGL. I call it bugle just because I'm stupid. All right, so if you want to add a new asset, you're simply going to add asset group. All right, and you're going to specify what kind of an asset group. We don't need to add an airport because we already have one. We're not working on an aircraft. Okay, so you don't need one of those. And visual effects, we're not really doing anything with that right now. What you want to do is click on custom, and then you're going to go to next, and then you're going to what's the word that I'm looking for? You specify the asset group that you're going to be adding, and we're going to be adding a material lib or a material library. So we're going to click material library. Up here, we are going to give it a unique name. Now, by default, it should put my MPW at the beginning, okay, of the name of the asset group, because over here in the inspector, if you notice company name, it has the MPW. So what it's going to do is it should append MPW to the front of whatever name I put into the asset group. Okay. But I'm going to even make that more unique. All right. I am going to call this 5 alpha 1 dash materials. Okay. Then I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to create. All right, now over here at the side, yeah, it didn't add the MPW. That's why I double unique named it, because I couldn't remember if it does append the MPW at the beginning or not. All right, so there you go. All right, now we are going to select the material library over here on the left. And we're going to double check this stuff right here. All right. I'm going to have a folder inside my project, inside my package sources, called 5 alpha 1 dash materials. All right. The output name, Excuse me for a second. I have to cough. Yeah, that's what happens when you only do this stuff. Try to do this stuff in one take. All right, so anyway. In the output directory, you can give this a unique name, which it already has, because if you don't have a unique name, it's going to make it called material lib. Okay? So since I have 5alpha1-materials, it's going to be unique to this project. That means it will not interfere with somebody else's material library, because a lot of people call their material lib material lib, and if there's more than one material lib, you'll have conflicts between somebody else's scenery. Not all the time, but a lot of times it does. So it's a really good idea to have a unique name for your material libraries. Now, what you call it inside your project sources is totally up to you. It's the output for the material libraries that really needs to be unique. Okay? So now that we have a material library, all right, we've just created it. I'm going to go ahead and do a save. And I am going to go ahead and build this project, and we're going to get out of the sim, and I'm going to show you what it did. All right, so we're going to click our project at the top, and we are going to simply click the build package. But before we do that, I want to show you a little bit of trick. If you go to the debug and go to console, this shows all the errors that have nothing to do with what you've been doing. Okay, these are just errors that are inherent to the sim and warnings of things that didn't work properly. All right, it's just the case of the sim. It's no big deal for you. It's the errors that you get after you add something or change something that you need to concern yourself about. So to get rid of all these in-sim errors and warnings, just simply come up here and clear all from the console so it's nice and clean. Close your console. All right. Then come back over to your inspector and do a build. And this might take a few seconds. This is not a big airport, so it doesn't take that long. And notice that it has created right here, compiling material library, and here's the path to the package sources for your material library. And down at the bottom, we have it validated the package, and down here at the very bottom, 0 failed, which is always what you're looking for. 0 failed. Warnings aren't that bad. Okay, more warnings mean that your package will still work, but some things might be goofy, all right? But it will still load up. It's errors that you don't want, okay? Now, if I had an error before I did this build, all right, when I did a save, if you have errors in your sim and you save using the save button, it won't allow you to save. You have to fix the error before you save, all right? And I didn't have any. These errors will show up in the console when you have build errors, all right? So we didn't have any, so we're good. 0 of 3 errors, all right? And those 3 errors have something to do with the sim and not your project, okay? There's actually no errors, all right? Then you can close your console and you can leave the sim, and that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to film it. So, okay, we are out of the sim now, back to the Windows Explorer, and I haven't changed the location of where I was before we went into the sim. Okay, so we are in the package sources of 5alpha1 Norwalk, and notice that we have a material libs folder in there. Okay, and inside that material libs, we have the 5alpha1 materials, which we created in the sim. All right, now in order for you to have materials, okay, that's why I created the asset group and left, is because inside we need a textures folder to put our custom stuff in. So we are simply going to go into the 5-alpha-1 materials folder in the model libs. Okay, we're going to add a new folder, and this is going to be called capital T textures, not to be confused with the textures that go into your model lib. Okay, inside the model lib, it's lowercase texture and only one texture. Okay, but in the model libs, it's capital T and it's plural. Okay, at this point, in order to start registering your custom materials, we need to copy your custom materials into this folder. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that now. So I have a custom material that I've used on other airports, like Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And notice I have a Wright-Patterson Air Force Base materials. All right, so inside that folder, there's a textures. Okay, just like we just created for 5-alpha-1 Norwalk, right? All right, so inside of here, there's the taxiway markings, and I'm just simply going to click. Don't worry about these flags. These are actually created when you register a texture into your material lib. Okay, right now 5-alpha-1 doesn't have any textures in it, but I don't want to bring over the flags. I just want to bring over the PNG. So I'm just going to simply expand my 5-alpha-1 materials to show my textures folder, and I'm simply going to just right click and drag that into this textures folder. So we'll copy it here. All right, so now inside 5-alpha-1 materials textures folder, we have the custom ground markings for making lines and stuff, and we'll talk about that in another video. And I've already done a video on custom ground textures, so there's a video that you can watch about that, but we're gonna come back to that working on this airport. Now there's another set of textures that I want to put in here, but I haven't finished them yet. So I'll show you what I'm doing there. So now I'm inside of Krita, which is a free Photoshop type clone software. I'd say it does 95% of what Photoshop does. But I've created a new 4K texture, which is 4096 by 4096. And I have taken a couple textures that I've downloaded from ambientcg.com. They're free. And I've downloaded one called Asphalt 21 4K. And then inside that, there was an ambient occlusion image, and there was also a roughness image, and there's also a normal image, and there's a diffuse image. All right, and what I'm doing is these come across, when you download those, they come across in a gray channel, which is fine, but your actual image itself, that your composite image, has to be RGB. So I've created a new one. Obviously it doesn't say saved because I haven't saved this yet. All right, but notice I have a metallic, I have a roughness, and I have a ambient occlusion layer. And if I right click the properties of each one of those, the ambient occlusion I have mapped to the red channel. Okay, The roughness I have mapped to the green channel, okay, and the metallic I have mapped to the blue channel, okay. And if I go into the ambient occlusion by itself, all right, and I right click the background, because that's what that's the only thing that's in there, and I do properties, notice that it only has a gray channel, doesn't have the RGB. All right, that's why I create a new image, and then I create a new paint layer, and then I copy from the image that I want to bring in. I basically do a Control A, selects everything, and then I do a Control C to copy that. And then I go into my new image and I do an edit paste in the active layer. Okay, so I created one called AO, one called rough, one called metallic, and I turned off the channels for each one that I didn't need in terms of the RGB, and then I just paste that into that image. So now I have 3 layers. I'm going to get out of that here for a second. I have 3 layers in my new image. One for AO, one for rough, one for metallic. Now it didn't have a metallic. This particular image didn't have a metallic because it's asphalt. Okay, so I had to create one, and then I painted it black, which means it's not metallic looking at all. Okay, white would be extremely shiny. Okay, so I have these 3 layers put together in a new image, and now all I need to do is I'm going to go to File, I'm going to export that, and then I am going to go all the way over to my project, which is in Microsoft Projects. It's in Scenery Projects, 5 Alpha 1 New, Norwalk, Package Sources, Model Lib, Materials, and there it is in my textures. Double click there. Here's the textures we just copied in there. And now I'm going to give this a name, and we're going to call this Asphalt 21. We don't need the 4K on there because unless it's different, okay? And then we're just going to put AORM at the end and put PNG. So this layer will be the ambient occlusion, the roughness, and the metallic. And we'll just do a save here and accept the compression. So now we have the AO, the roughness, and the metallic in there. I'll minimize this. Now the next step is to actually get the diffuse color. Notice there's our whatever you want to call it. And now I'm going to come all the way down. I'm going to close some here, close some things. I'm going to go into my textures folder, and there's an Asphalt 21. So we're going to go into that folder. There's the ambient occlusion I brought in, and here's the roughness that I brought in. And remember, there's no metallic, so I had to create one. Okay, but what we want now is the color itself, which is right here. Okay, and we're going to copy that image into our Model Lib textures folder. So I'm going to right click and drag and drop that into the textures. And then I also want the normals, which is this DX one, and we're going to right click and drag those into the textures, copy those. And then if I go into the textures folder, there's all of the layers that I need. Okay. Did I get that right? Okay, yeah, I think I did. You know, going back to my Krita, let's go back to Krita because I think I did something incorrect. I know I did. So we're going to open up Krita, all right? And the AO channel, The sim will actually take care of ambient occlusion by itself. So what I'm going to do is I need to get my normals into this composite. So I'm going to remove the AO channel. All right. Now for other textures, ground textures are a little bit different inside your model lib. That's why I had to stop and rethink. Because if you were making a model of a building and you had AO and you had roughness, in Blender there's already a slot that separates your AO roughness and metallic from your normals. But when you create a custom ground texture, your normals need to be part of that composite too, and that's what I failed to do. And that's because I'm in the habit of doing this for buildings and airplanes and stuff like that, and not for the ground materials. So what I'm going to do is we're going to remove that AO layer, okay, which was on the red channel, okay, and we are going to open. We're going to open the normals for this, okay? So it's going to open up a new image for our normals, okay? So here I'm on my normals now. If I right click properties, we have the RGB, right? Okay. It's not a grayscale. Normals is RGB off the bat. But what we need to do is we need to convert this only to the red channel in our new image. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new paint layer, okay, and we are going to call this normals. Okay, so I'm replacing the AO with the normals in this particular case because that's the way the material library has to have them, and we're going to add the normals to our composite. So here's my normals folder. My normals layer, and we are going to go to our normals image, and I'm going to hit Control A to select everything, Control C to copy everything, go into our folder here, and our new image, and we are going to, since I have normals as my active layer, I'm going to go to Edit, and I'm going to paste into active layer, okay. And then I'm going to right click properties for that normal, and I'm going to turn off the blue and I'm going to turn off the green so it's mapped to the red. Hit OK. Okay, so now I have a composite of the normals, the roughness, and the metallic. All right, now I need to re-export this. And we are, since the last place that I exported was the correct folder, all right, I am going to name this. I'm going to take off the AO and make that N for normals, okay. I'm going to hit enter, accept the compression, and then we're going to now minimize Krita and go into our textures folder. I need to refresh here. There we go, right there. And this AO, we are just simply going to, actually what I'm going to do is I'm gonna need that. So I'm going to come over here to Asphalt 21. And I'm just simply going to move that over to Asphalt 21 because I can use that elsewhere. Okay, so we're going to move that. So we have, and we don't need the normals here. Okay, so because we already have the normals in our composite, so we're just going to simply delete that. So now I just have the diffuse and the normal, roughness, and metallic in our material libraries. Okay, next we're going to go into our sim and add these assets to our asset group. Okay, we are back in the sim. I've loaded up the project, and now we're going to select the bugle and load this into the editor. You don't have to do this part for this, but I'm doing it anyway. Then we can minimize the inspector, and we're going to maximize the material editor. And we are going to click the material again, okay? Notice, all right, so material library right here in our list. But if you notice over to the right, notice that in the material editor, we now have an MPW Airport 5 Alpha 1 Norwalk, which is the name of our project. That means that we have a material library asset that we can use. So if I click that, notice that there's nothing in there, right? So now we can start adding our materials to this asset group. So you're simply going to go to File, and you're going to do New. Make sure that you're on your package that you're doing. And we are going to add in called taxiways. All right, these are custom lines that we'll use later. All right, and you're going to click inside the black box, and you are going to migrate over to your brand new material library, which is in the package sources, material libs, 5 alpha 1, textures folder, and here's the textures that we added to that folder. I'm going to select taxi markings alpha, and I'm going to open. And it's going to open that into this square, and we simply save, and it gets added to our material library. Remember those flag files? There is now a flag file in our textures folder. So if I open up the Windows Explorer, notice now we have a flag. It's now registered to the project. Okay, now we're going to simply you don't have to hit that X like I just did, but we're going to go to File, New, and we notice that there is a slot right here for normal, roughness, and metallic. All right, so let's add in a new asset. Let's call this Asphalt 21. Hit enter. Just like the taxiways, we're going to click the black box. We're going to choose the diffuse and open that. There it is. Now we come over here to the normal, roughness, metallic. Click inside that black box, and we're going to click our composite that has the normals, roughness, and metallic, and we're going to click open, and that should put that right here, I hope. Maybe. There it is. Okay, so now we have that, and now we simply save. So now over in our material library, we now have our Asphalt 21, and you can close this box here. All right, so that takes care of adding custom materials. Now as you make new materials, you just copy them into that textures folder in your your material lib, and then you come back here, choose your package, and then add that new texture to your project. All right, now we're going to add a model lib folder or a model lib. So we're going to go open up the inspector. We're going to choose our project up here. Okay, we can do a save if you want. Okay, we're going to choose our project up here, and down at the bottom we're going to add a new asset group, just like we did with material lib, except this is going to be a model lib. Okay, now by default it's going to create a model lib folder. All right, but it may not be what you want. Okay, so by habit, this is what I normally do. By habit, before I even do this in the sim, we're going to come back to package sources, and inside package sources, I'm going to create my own model lib folder, and we're going to call this 5 alpha 1 models. Okay, and then inside of this folder, we're going to create a folder called new folder here, new folder, texture, lowercase t, singular. Okay, so now inside of the model lib, inside the package sources, we have the models. This is our new model lib, and we have a folder called texture. All right. Now, I like to do this part outside of the sim because with adding them inside the sim, you notice it creates a material libs. Well, I don't want a material lib, a model libs in there. I want it to have a completely unique name. You can do this, you can do the same thing with the model lib, but I chose not to show you how it creates it. But by default, I would go ahead before I went into the sims, I would add my own material libs with a unique name, and then the textures folder inside of there. And then I would use the sim to tell it where to point to. Okay, like we're going to do here with the model libs. All right, so we're going to minimize this. We're going to come over here to the inspector, and we are going to add a new asset group, and it's a custom. So we're going to go next, and for the asset type, we're going to say model lib, and we're going to give it a name, and we're going to call this 5 alpha 1 model lib, which is fine if you want, as long as it has the 5 alpha dash in front of it, which is okay. Hit enter. Okay, and we're going to create. All right, now we're going to change some properties of this model lib. Click model lib, because notice now it's pointing to a folder called 5 alpha 1 model lib. All right, but we don't want that. Since we created a folder, I'm going to click the 3 dots. I'm going to go back to our package sources, go into our 5 alpha 1 models, or click that. I'm going to select that folder that I created, select folder, and now this gets updated to a totally unique name. All right, but when it writes it out to our package, this is going to be the name, and 5 alpha 1 dash model lib is unique enough in my opinion. All right, so we have our model lib pointing to that new folder that we just created. All right, so next we're going to save, and then we are going to rebuild our package. So I'm going to go to debug console, and there's those errors again from the sim, inherent to the sim. So I'm going to erase all those, close out the console. You don't have to, but it's always in the way. So I'm going to choose up here our project, go to the inspector, and I'm going to do a build package. And I made some changes, which is fine. Say yes. And this takes a little bit for it to create it. Shouldn't take too long because there's not much in there. And there we go. We check for errors. We have 0. And down at the bottom it says 0 failed. So we are good to go. So that is creating assets using the SDK's menu system. I hope this was helpful. Now, I want to make a disclaimer, okay? I know a lot of people already created videos on how to do this, and they are much shorter and they are very helpful. They're the videos I used to learn a few years ago. All right. But Flying Theston and Benny Boy 444 have also created these. They're the original gurus. Flying Theston, in my opinion, is the father of the SDK. All right, all credit to him because that's who I learned from. His videos are much shorter, concise. They'll get you going. The only thing about my videos is I add in some more narrative to explain how things are happening. So I hope that you found this video helpful. And if you want a quick and dirty version of how to do this, go to Flying Theston's YouTube channel or Benny Boy 444 and watch his stuff. They do the same thing, much quicker, but they don't explain a lot of things like I do. Okay. But I'm not saying I'm better than them. I'm just different. Hey, I appreciate you guys watching these videos. Please subscribe if you haven't. Hit the notification bell for upcoming videos on the channel. Like, share, whatever. Make sure that you comment. Tell me that I'm full of it. Whatever you want. Just be kind. And if you guys feel inclined to support what I do here on this channel with the Microsoft Flight Simulator, consider buymeacoffee.com/myphysicalworld, and I will see you guys on the next video. See you guys later.